Hello everyone, my name is James, a son of a Western family where creativity and a deep love for nature have been cherished for generations. Today, I want to share with you the story of my beloved grandmother, a woman with the heart of an artist who transformed an empty plot of land beside our house into a vibrant, colorful, and inspiring garden. My grandmother was not just a gentle and loving grandma. She was also a brilliant gardener, a true artist with an immense passion for every flower, every leaf. Every morning, as the soft rays of the sun filtered through the trees, she would appear in the garden with a warm smile and skillful hands, ready to start the day. I still remember those mornings spent tending to the bright flower beds with her, listening to stories about how nature and art could intertwine to create a magical space right in the middle of our neighborhood. That garden was not just a place to grow plants. It was a living masterpiece, a reflection of my grandmother's personality and her profound love for nature. Rows of flowers in every shade imaginable, from classic roses and romantic chrysanthemums to wildflowers that grew freely, were all arranged with meticulous care and boundless creativity. Every little corner of the garden told a story of life, of memories, and of faith in the beauty of the natural world. To me, that garden was a treasure trove of childhood memories, a peaceful sanctuary amidst the bustling life of the modern city. But before long, that source of pride was put to the test when the Homeowners Association HOA began sending us warning notices. From the very first letter, I could sense the cold, rigid tone in their accusations. The HOA claimed that my grandmother's garden violated the standards set by the community. They argued that the arrangement of the flower beds, with their vibrant, unconventional colors, disrupted the uniform appearance of the neighborhood. I asked myself, how could a space created with passion and creativity be deemed inconsistent simply because it was different? The letters from the HOA laid out the specific regulations they believed the garden had violated. They cited strict clauses regarding color limitations, plant arrangement guidelines, and aesthetic harmony required for the community. According to them, the garden's bright colors and unique design had exceeded the allowed limits, creating a landscape that was bizarre and out of place. As I read through these rules, I was filled with disbelief, because to me, those very elements were the soul, the defining character of a living work of art. Each letter was a shock, as if my grandmother's artistic vision and creative spirit were being completely dismissed. I vividly remember the feeling when I first opened the envelope filled with bold, unyielding criticisms. In my mind, the garden wasn't just a plot of land with plants. It was a place where childhood memories were woven, a space where my grandmother had poured her heart into crafting a little paradise in the middle of the city. The clash between these rigid rules and the beauty of natural expression made me feel like art itself was being forced into a soulless mold. In the evenings that followed, as darkness settled and the neighborhood fell silent, I would sit alone at my desk, rereading those letters from the HOA. I wondered how, in an era where creative freedom was celebrated, there could still be people who sought to impose lifeless rules that stifled individuality and artistic expression. The HOA's accusations felt like sharp needles, piercing my heart, not just with frustration, but with a deep sense of injustice spreading through me. I began speaking with neighbors to better understand the situation. Some of them shared that they, too, appreciated the beauty and vibrancy the garden brought to the community. They believed its uniqueness made the neighborhood more lively and charming. However, others argued that if everyone expressed their artistic vision freely, the overall appearance of the neighborhood would become chaotic and lose its sense of uniformity. This divide in opinions left me even more conflicted, torn between my pride in a living work of art and the pressure to conform to rigid regulations. I remember the sleepless nights, not only hearing the wind rustling through the trees, but also the whispers of my own heart mourning the threatened freedom of creativity. I questioned whether the value of art was truly measured by numbers, by conformity to predetermined standards, or was true beauty something that couldn't be confined by rules, something that could only be felt through the heart and soul of those who experienced it. These questions haunted me, fueling an even stronger determination to protect my grandmother's garden. Gradually, with each letter, I realized that this issue was about more than just a small garden. It was a battle between the rigidity of regulations and the vitality of creativity. I began researching HOA policies to understand the legal grounds of their claims. However, the more I read, the more I saw that these rules were simply tools for maintaining order, leaving no room for artistic diversity. The uniqueness of the garden, with each flower bed carefully designed, each corner infused with my grandmother's personal touch, was precisely what the HOA refused to accept. In my mind, each warning letter was a direct challenge to my grandmother's creative passion. I felt the weight of not only these rigid rules but also the societal mindset that dictated what was right and wrong in art. Never had I imagined that, in the modern world, a living piece of art could be judged through the lens of conservatism. The words in the HOA's letters weren't just passing judgment on a garden. They were an attempt to redefine beauty on their own terms. These thoughts led me to decide that I would not accept the fate of the garden based on narrow-minded standards. I knew that despite the controversies and the criticisms from the HOA, the power of art and creative freedom was something that could never be subdued. Each letter, each criticism, only strengthened my determination to protect the values that my grandmother's garden represented: life, freedom, and the independent spirit of art. And so, in an atmosphere of tension mixed with hope, I embarked on a journey to seek justice for the garden. I believed that as long as perseverance and faith in beauty remained, the truth would eventually be revealed. The discussions and meetings with the HOA representatives, though challenging, also opened up glimpses of hope, affirming that art should not be confined by rigid regulations. It was during this time that I realized that in every confrontation, there is always an opportunity for change, to affirm the right to creative freedom and the value of natural beauty. Each letter from the HOA, no matter how strict and cold, became motivation for me to keep standing up for what my heart held most dear: my grandmother's garden, a symbol of passion, life, and boundless art. Perhaps what made me most proud of my grandmother was her unyielding spirit in the face of hardship. When the HOA's notices of criticism started arriving, instead of showing worry or hesitation, she remained calm and resolute. She told me, "These rigid regulations are only temporary limits. They cannot obscure the value of true art." Her words were a bridge between the past and the present, reminding me that art should never be confined by rigid standards. She shared with me many of the projects she had worked on. Once, in a project on the outskirts of a major city, she maximized inspiration from the surrounding nature, using native plants combined with water and light elements to create a space that was both modern and harmonized with nature. That project was not only highly praised by an international panel of judges, but also became a source of inspiration for many young designers. Through her stories, I felt her immense pride and burning passion. A woman who always believed in the value of creativity and art. With all those achievements and experiences, my grandmother was not just an expert in landscape design, but also someone who stood strong against adversity when the HOA's criticisms poured in. She decided that instead of avoiding or retreating, she would use all her knowledge and expertise to defend the garden, not only for its artistic value but also for the deep emotional connection our family had with it. She began gathering documents, awards, and praises from past projects to prove her professionalism and creative vision. In meetings with the HOA representatives, my grandmother spoke clearly and confidently, explaining that our garden was not a violation of the rules but rather a testament to vitality and creative freedom. She argued that every element in the garden, from the arrangement of flower beds to the layout of the pathways, was carefully planned to bring not only aesthetic beauty but also harmony between nature and people. Art should not be restricted by rigid templates, she said. It is an expression of the soul, of passion, and of vibrancy. Her words strengthened my faith in the values that the garden upheld. Every word, every gesture of hers etched into my mind a lesson about perseverance, courage, and the power of art. In that moment, I realized that my grandmother's accomplishments and experiences were the most powerful weapons against external criticism. With the belief that true beauty cannot be judged by a narrow standard, she stood firm and affirmed that our family's garden was not merely a piece of land for planting, it was a living work of art, embodying the intersection of nature and humanity. My grandmother didn't just teach me how to care for plants, she taught me how to nurture the soul and a passion for art. Thanks to her, I learned that whenever faced with hardship, we must remember that true value lies not in blindly following rigid rules but in the ability to create and the desire for self-expression. And that is why, despite the challenges from the HOA, she always smiled, strong and confident, a living testament to the power of art and perseverance. The meeting took place on a Friday afternoon in a spacious yet cold conference room where the HOA members sat in a circle, their stern gazes resembling a courtroom setting. The stifling, tense atmosphere made every breath feel amplified in the silence. But from the moment my grandmother stepped inside, everything seemed to shift. With her composed demeanor and confident eyes, she appeared ready to transform that room into a stage to showcase the strength of art and passion. The HOA representative opened the meeting with sharp criticisms, listing the regulations they claimed our garden had violated: colors too vibrant, an uncoordinated layout, and a design that does not follow traditional aesthetic norms. Their words struck like arrows of disapproval, creating a suffocating atmosphere. I could feel the cold gazes of the members as if they were already prepared to condemn every creative effort. But my grandmother, instead of responding with anger, spoke in a gentle yet firm voice. Ladies and gentlemen, art has never been confined within the rigid framework of regulations. This garden is an expression of the soul, of vivid emotions, and of a burning passion for nature. My grandmother began to recount her creative process, from selecting colors and arranging flower beds to designing walkways that would create a harmonious space between people and nature. She shared intricate details about every seed, every flower planted with love and meticulous care, as if each tiny element carried its own story. My art, she said, is not just about creating a visually pleasing space but about evoking emotions, fostering a connection between individuals and nature. Her words rang out like a challenge to preconceived notions, gradually warming the once cold atmosphere of the meeting room. As she presented, she did not rely solely on words but also brought along documents, testimonials, and praise from renowned experts in landscape design. The HOA members, accustomed to rigid traditional standards, began to show surprise and curiosity in the face of such compelling evidence. I could see the shift in their expressions, from initial skepticism to growing admiration and even inspiration. One member, after listening to her presentation, softly remarked, "We never realized that a garden could hold so much meaning and emotion. Perhaps we've been too confined by outdated standards." Those words were like a faint light breaking through the gloomy atmosphere of the meeting. Other members started asking questions, discussing the value of art and creative freedom. They wanted to understand how a garden, initially seen as a regulatory violation, could instead provide emotional and spiritual benefits to the community. I remember the surge of pride as I watched my grandmother confidently answer every question, sharing details of her creative journey and explaining that this garden was not just a piece of land for planting, but a sanctuary where people could find peace, inspiration, and joy. The meeting stretched on for hours, and gradually the initial criticisms from the HOA were replaced with words of appreciation and respect. The members began to recognize that my grandmother's garden did not just enhance the neighborhood's vibrancy, it also served as a source of inspiration for other creative ideas. They started discussing ways to incorporate elements of her garden into the beautification of the entire community, moving beyond rigid regulations. One of the members shared, "We've learned that beauty doesn't exist in just one single mold. The diversity of artistic expression can enrich the lives of our community." That statement opened a new path, not just for the HOA but also for the residents, many of whom had felt stifled by strict rules. The story of the garden became a symbol of passion and perseverance, a message that art, in any form, holds an immeasurable value beyond rigid standards. Through this deeply emotional confrontation, not only was my grandmother's garden protected, but the spirit of the community was also liberated. In the following meetings, instead of judgmental hearings, discussions transformed into exchanges of ideas, sharing stories of art and creativity. Residents began organizing workshops and small exhibitions in the garden, turning it into a cultural hub where everyone had the opportunity to express themselves. For me, that moment was not just a victory for the garden, it was a triumph for passion and the perseverance to pursue natural beauty. It taught me that no matter how many challenges and prejudices we face, as long as we believe in our values, art will always find a way to shine. My grandmother's garden, from that moment on, was no longer just a family treasure, it became a symbol of a community that cherished diversity and creativity. And so, through that emotionally charged meeting, the HOA changed its perspective, opening its heart to new values and the true spirit of art. In the end, rigidity gave way to understanding and respect. I felt immense pride witnessing that moment, the moment when the beauty of nature and art triumphed, ushering in a new chapter for our neighborhood where every living space could become a unique work of art.